I'm Tim Heaney. I'm a Supportability Program Manager on the Exchange team. My responsibility areas are basically hybrid and migration.
My name is Thomas Wicker. I own the migrations for the Fast Track program, but I've been involved with Microsoft Mail migrations since about 2007.
My name's Tim Thomason. I'm a deployment consultant with America's Cloud Services, and I'm involved in a lot of the Office 365 deployments.
My name is Michael van Orbeek. I am a product director for eNow, and I do also hybrid migrations and deployments, and yeah.
Hi, I'm Ram. My name is Ram Purnalingam. I'm a program manager in the Exchange migration team.
So before we take questions, with all the interaction that you guys want to have today, we do want to ask you a question, and Ram is going to start by asking you.
Okay. So I want to do some sort of quick show of hands, and how many of you here have used the Exchange migration solutions to migrate customers online? Okay, a few. Do you guys like it? So, no? All right. So I kind of want to get some sort of feedback on what is missing in the tool set and do some sort of a priority exercise maybe later in the session. And kind of get a feedback on what you want us to develop first, and so that this can be more interactive and useful as well. I'll come up with a list, initial list, and talk about some of the problems, and then you can tell me whether I'm smoking or and whether I'm missing something here. Okay?
All right. So does anybody want to start with a question, concern, comment?
Raise your here. Question.
Public folder, my name's Todd, by the way. Public folder migrations from in a hybrid scenario for Exchange 2013 on-premise to Office 365. Is there a native tool?
So you're talking about if you have public folders already on Exchange 2013, and you want to go hybrid and move them. The answer is no. There's no tool, and the public folder.
Will there be, or is there?
Yeah, so it's in the roadmap. So I just spoke to the public folder PM, and they are working on it.
Is that on the roadmap for 2016 or for 2013?
I don't know the answer to that question, but.
Nino Billick is right behind you. Hand him the mic.
Public folder PM in the previous session mentioned it will happen within 1 year. So at that point, so the question is 2013 to Exchange Online, right? So she said it is on the roadmap within within 1 year.
So your solution right now would be to do hybrid public folders. If you have hybrid already configured and you want your cloud users to access public folders, that would be your solution now. And to keep that Exchange server on premises for that purpose. You could use third party, sure.
In some cases, we need to do migrations from different organizations to a single tenant. And if Azure AD Sync is enabled, the cutover migration is disabled. Yeah. Is that something that is going to be changed at some point, or?
The reason you want to use cutover as opposed to staged?
Yes.
Why do you?
If they don't have a hybrid, for example.
So stage works even without hybrid. As long as you have DirSync enabled, you can use stage migrations.
With 2010?
With 2010. So there is a workaround. So the workaround is that there is a skip target address setting on the new migration batch command that you can use against 2010 for stage as well. We are looking into supporting stage for 2010 and above. It's sort of in my roadmap to build some support around it. The only reason that we don't support stage against 2010 are two reasons. One is stage doesn't have a notion of incremental sync. So once you do migrations, it's done. We don't do delta syncs. And the reason is we set the target address on the source. Once we set target address on the source, mail starts flowing to the cloud. So we don't need to do that incremental sync. The problem is 2010 and above don't support setting target address, and that's the bug that we couldn't get fixed in time. So we said, hey, how can we support stage in this? So and also MRS hybrid is a much better protocol to go and use for 2010 and above. And I understand that people find hybrid a little hard to set up and therefore want to use stage. And so to support those scenarios, we're thinking about this. But in the interim, you can use new migration batch and do this skip step, and you can verify, skip the target address setting. Once you do that, it will work against 2010, but it'll just do a one-shot sync. So if you want to do a resync, you'll have to recreate and redo it.
And we can keep their sync enabled in that
With their sync enabled, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it's just a one-shot sync, so you won't get incremental sync. Okay.
While I'm walking all the way back here, I'm going to ask a question. Tim, you were talking about hybrid configuration wizard that was kind of out of band. There's another application, a web server or something like that you install.
What were you asking?
It was a hybrid configuration wizard that wasn't part of Exchange.
Oh, okay. So the future of hybrid.
The future.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're moving to a web-based version of the hybrid configuration wizard called the standalone HCW. We are shooting for, when we first release it, we're shooting for feature parity, right? So we're trying to take everything that's in the HCW on the on-premises HCW today and make sure that that is all capable in the standalone HCW. The benefit to that, once we have the standalone HCW, the benefit to that is that we are taking we're basically stepping away from being tied to the CU model so that we can actually iterate and put new features out much quicker. We don't have to wait for the next CU to fix an issue. If we cause an issue on the service, we can actually just fix the HRC or the standalone HCW experience, and then all of a sudden everybody's working again rather than waiting a month or 2 months for the FIU to be created and distributed by calling support and all that stuff. Allows you to light up features much quicker. So you can light up features out of band. You don't have to wait for CUs. And it allows everybody on 2013 or 16 to use the same version of the HCW. Like today, when you use 2010 HCW, you have one experience. You use 2013, you have another. And 2016 would have been another. Now everybody uses one HCW and has one solid experience.
So does that mean you're going to pull the HCW out of the code for 2010, 2013, and 2016?
2010, no. 2010 is still going to use the HCW, the legacy HCW, we'll call it, okay? The 2013 and 16 are going to use the new HCW. If you will not have an option to say, I want to use old HCW. It will be used, when it's ready, you will use the new HCW.
So, sorry, when that happens, does that mean it won't be in EAC anymore?
It'll be in EAC. The entry point for HCW is not changing, right? So you'll go to EAC, you'll go to the hybrid node, you'll click on Enable or Modify, depending if it's a new or an existing configuration. It's just what happens in the background. Instead of calling local code on the box, it'll call a web-based experience and then run the HCW. So you're calling a web address to pull down that HCW.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, I got the mic right here.
There's the gentleman in the back is the one that we a while ago.
Hold on.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. For Office 365, we're considering going to it, but about 20% of our workstations are Macintosh computers. If I had a choice, I'd get rid of them, but I can't. The message size limit has been increased to 150 megabyte for the Outlook client. And the Mac, I can understand it's 35 meg. Is that changeable?
I can answer.
So at the moment, the limit on EWS, which is used for if you're, are you talking about client connectivity or?
Yes.
Yeah, so client connectivity is different to the move process. You've still got a limit on the sync connectors in Office 365 will accept the larger limit that we've introduced. EWS protocol, I think, is that going to have a limit on it too, though?
Still does right now.
Yeah.
So the EWS protocol right now has a limit still imposed, so you do not get the 150 megabyte limit increase yet. It's something that is being changed, and We made the cone change already. So it's something that's it's not released yet, but it's something that is very close to being released. I don't know exactly when it's going to be out, but it's going to be very soon.
Thank you. That sounds good. Will that also be released to the government cloud?
The GCC?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. I have a question for Michael. I suppose we are fellow countrymen. I suppose you've done some migrations for actual customers yourself?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell us the lessons learned and the pitfalls that you've encountered while migrating to Exchange Online?
You've got a few days.
No, but I do got a few minutes.
Honestly, no. Yeah, sure. There's a lot of things to think about, of course. The session that Tim and I did on Wednesday covered some of those stuff. It's all about planning, right? Making sure that how you move to the cloud is actually the right thing for you. I love hybrid. That's how I got my nickname. So I'm a little bit biased there. But I also saw a lot of, a customer walked up to me and says, I've got 30 people. Is hybrid the right solution for me? Well, it would be a really painful thing for you to say yes at that point in time. The answer is it depends, but if you start out right, make sure that you choose the right migration option to you. And then it all comes down to making sure that you got your bases covered. If you have a solid environment on premises, then your experience to moving to Office 365 will probably be good. But if you have a 2,000 user site with a 2 meg internet connection, I mean, there's nothing much that you can do about that. I've seen it in France. I mean, it happened. So there's a lot of things to cover, a lot of things that are usually tied to the on-premises stuff. Exchange not implemented correctly, certificates not done correctly. Before the new migration limit, a lot of problems came from larger message sizes. You had to pull them out if you wanted to keep them, which is a lot of extra work. Before the changes in CU8, ES redirection for the devices, well, it means a lot of pain to go through if you did a hybrid migration and you moved 500 mailboxes a month, 500 times reconfiguring an Outlook profile. So those are typically a lot of things that you take away. And obviously there's many more little tidbits, but it really depends on the environment that you're working in.
Yeah, and I'm just from a little similar country over than that other side of the pond, Germany, but so I can talk about this too. No, one of the things we also see the Fast Track program, a lot of experience, also ACS has a lot of experience with migrations, is we focus very much on the technical aspects of how to achieve it, and we forget the end user experience, and we don't develop the communication cycles to our end users. And so this is one of the things we often talk to our customers and our partners about. Remember, there's that piece, the business side of it, especially if you're doing a big upgrade or change from something, a lot of change for the end user. If they don't know about it ahead of time, they can actually slow down your migrations because the squeaky wheel is heard. Even if migrations are going absolutely, from a technical aspect, perfect, they can slow down your migration process.
Yeah, and I mean, that's probably one of the single biggest things that we see in the ACS deployments is no matter how much you plan with the customers for readiness and customers ensure their end users are all up to date. And so most of the time we hit patch level issues. Outlook's not fully patched, so now the client can't connect. It won't reauto discover there's something missing. Or it's patched, but it's security patches only because that's what's been approved because of the internal process in place. And you need to have your applications up to the latest recommended or required, in some cases, patch levels. So planning for your end user experience is probably one of the most important things. I mean, you can move a mailbox, that's fine. But if a user can't connect to it because a device works, but Outlook doesn't work, you get a bad user experience. Suddenly the water cooler talk is, hey, I got moved to Office 365 and, quite frankly, it sucks and I want to go back. And so that's an experience that you don't want communicated out there. Delegates, calendar sharing, those are probably the two other biggest things that we see come up. If you have a heavy delegate use, ensure, no matter how much you talk to customers about it and trying to move them together, Sometimes you have a large group and it doesn't work. You know, maybe you have 300-400 users in a department and they're very heavy delegate users, and it's not possible to bring them all over in one night. You have to phase them in, and suddenly you got users in the cloud that now can't access an on-prem mailbox, a shared mailbox, or something they needed to. So what can you do? There is, depending on your environment, there is a kind of answer to that. If you have Exchange, if you have Outlook 2013 in place, Exchange 2013 will honor the delegate permissions. You can't edit them, but it actually will work. It's not documented and listed, but it will buy you that time if you need to break up a group over a week or two migration in a large department. So, as I said, it's not sort of listed there, but it does work.
Yeah, the funny part is you hear what he's talking about, what I talked about, and what we first gentleman talked about was it's a lot of stuff that's not the technical aspect of moving the mailbox. It's the things that we easily forget, right? And so, but those are key because otherwise, even if you're technically are sound on moving the mailbox, and even if you're doing it on-prem, that can even happen too. So it's not just a cloud issue.
And just to beat it to death, the other thing would be that a lot of people overlook is the identity piece of things, right? If you don't figure out your identity, if you don't figure out what the sign-in experience you want for users is ahead of time, do you want ADFS, DirSync, or managed identities? You know, if you don't figure that out, your user experience will suffer for that. So it's all about, the migration works. Forget about that. It's all about everything else. It's not us. It's the other teams that are screwed.
Way in the back.
Yeah, you'll have to forgive me if I'm slightly out of date. It's been a while since I attempted to do this, and the only way then was a third-party product. Company A is on-prem in Exchange 2010, and Company B wants to split away from Company A and wants to go to Office 365. Company A flatly refuses hybrid. And of course, they want everything up in the cloud. They don't just want their mail. They want contacts, calendar, everything. And it's absolutely not in Company A's best interest at all to set up hybrid or anything else. How would you solve it without using a third-party product?
Not even a DirSync?
No, nothing.
So you're saying you have one on-premise company in Forest, and half of it's going to go to the cloud, but they don't want hybrid?
Yeah, exactly. It's not in their interest. They've sold the company. They've sold Company B.
So, but if they're not, so will they allow you to actually take the mail out?
Yeah. I can get the mail out. I can jack into whatever exists.
But no identity with the email?
No. They'll go to pure cloud only identity. At the time, I used third-party product to fix it, to get the mail out of it.
Yeah, without DirSync, your choices are really limited. And then, you know, with native tools, you would be stuck with cutover, which would move everybody, which obviously wouldn't suffice. You know, you could do DirSync with filtering so that you could say, I'm only going to move people that are within a certain scope to the cloud, and then use the staged migration approach potentially to move them. That would be the best solution I could think of with native tools. I don't know if anybody else has an idea, but...
Well, you know, as you said, it sounds simpler to use a third party, sorry guys, but it is true. I mean, sometimes the built-in tools are just not fit, and this kind of seems like a corner case because, you know, it happens. I've seen situations where a company is in a hosted solution and they were not giving any access. It's like, yeah, well, if you want to get your data out, here are your PSTs. Well, if that's the case, then, you know, sometimes your options are limited, right? So if you can do filtering in DirSync, you can't do DirSync at all, then, you know, sometimes it is just easier to go a third-party route.
How big is your org? How big is the company?
Company A was, 5,000, Company B, 300.
So you want to move A into the cloud or B into the cloud?
B.
So B, 300, I would say pre-provision the mailboxes and use stage migration to move the mail. That's fine. Stage migration still will work without DirSync too, as long as you pre-provision the mailboxes. You can skip setting target address, but it's a one-shot sync. So that means that you have to do a bunch of manual things on premise to ensure that mail flow is redirected to the cloud, like convert the mailbox to MEU, and you should be okay. DirSync dependency on DirSync in stage, we removed it in 2013. and so it should work. But this is like some of the corner cases that you need to be careful with. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I'm down here. So along the lines of his question, only in reverse, we've run into a couple organizations. In fact, we have one coming up that plans on doing 40 some odd mergers in the next 12 months. Some of those other organizations are already in the cloud and they want to merge them with their tenant. How do we, other than third party, is there anything in the roadmap that's going to allow one tenant to another in your own, it's already in your data center. Why can't we more simply move those around?
It's a great question. It's actually something we have on it. We are very aware of that problem. And there's discussions on how to best handle that. The actual problem is more of an identity question than an actual mailbox move question, right? And so that's where we're working with that team, giving them the requirements. So that's part of the, I don't know if anybody saw my fast track sessions or one of my peers' fast track sessions. Part of the reason we're doing this project is to gain what you all or our partners are seeing as the main roadblocks and challenges that are coming, so we can give additional feedback and quantitative feedback to the workloads. The teams that are, actually can help fix that problem.
To be fair, though, the hybrid team is known. I'm sorry, the migration team has known that there has been a need for tenant-to-tenant migrations. This is not a new problem. It's just not as easy of a problem to solve as you would think. Because everybody thinks, oh, just forklift the mailboxes, and it's not that easy. Right now, third party is the option, and based on the redundancy of him grabbing the microphone, I'm going to say it's not on the roadmap at this time.
He spoke better than me. So yeah, we're thinking about it. It's a complicated problem, and unfortunately, we had to get a lot of teams involved to get that problem solved. And it's one of those currently unfunded problems.
If I had a T-shirt, I'd give it to you, but I don't have it.
Is cross-premises delegation on the roadmap, and if so, when?
Yeah, I could take that one. Yeah, so I don't know who answered that, so I'll talk to you. Yeah, so cross-premises delegation is on the roadmap. Okay, so cross-premises delegation is on the roadmap for to a point. We're trying to first work on making sure cross-premises calendar delegation works, and actually a lot of the work's already been done, so some of the plumbing is in place to make it work. It's not complete. We don't have a timeline for it yet because it's one of those things that's going to take a lot of validation. It's going to take a lot of content to say what is supported and what isn't, because there's a lot of different types of delegation. There's mailbox, there's calendar, and they're all intricate. They all need different things, okay? So when we light it up, it might not be lit up for everything. It might not be lit up for all clients, but it is something that is absolutely being looked at, worked on, and it should be here someday. I know I can't give you the exact date, I'm sorry, but it's being very aggressively worked on. So.
We are in the process of going from 2007 with a hybrid setup into the cloud. So I have the on-premise 2013 hybrid server set up. Is there any benefit to moving mailboxes onto that server first and then go into the cloud, or just straight in from the 2007 mailbox server?
I mean, it depends on why you would want to do that. I mean, if you're going to be using some features on 2013, then sure, move them there. But most of our customers, when we just do a direct move from 2007.
So because even if the mailbox is on 2007, it will still do an online move. It won't.
One of the areas that could come up, for example, if you have a customer with compliance requirement, and I talked about it in the earlier session, and you need to maybe maintain a litigation hold or something going across, well, that's not available in 2007. So that's a case where you'd want to move it while it's still on-prem, using your existing on-prem compliance software, journaling, whatever you've got in place. You move it to 2013, set the tag on it for litigation hold on the mailbox, and then as it's moved to the cloud, you can be sure you're meeting all your compliance and regulatory requirements.
But as far as the mailbox being allowed to be online during the move, will that work with it being on a 2007 server to start with?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So just to add something to that, there's one particular thing, and you can comment if I'm wrong, but in CU8, that's the EAS redirection automatically when you move a mailbox, which only works when you're from a 2010 or 2013 mailbox. So if you're moving directly from 2007 and you don't want to reconfigure the ActiveSync profile afterwards, you can do the double hop. But honestly, it comes down to whether or not you can handle the load, and if you can, then I would just move them right away.
And then I just have a comment about the HCW that I ran into an issue with that where you have to copy the TXT record in for DNS to validate that. In the wizard, if you just hit the copy link that's on there, it copies too much. And then you find out later that, oops, you only have 3 tries to fix it before you have to wait 24 hours to try it again.
Yeah, we lock you out for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Feedback taken. I'll make sure it gets to the right folks. Yeah.
Microsoft support really helped with that one. They helped me start over so I didn't have to wait 24 hours because I was in the middle of a change.
I'm very happy you recorded that. That's awesome. It's all being recorded.
So we were considering Office 365, and I was at a session earlier today that indicated there might be some performance concerns with third-party applications and workflow. We have a lot of, we actually have custom applications that are using EWS to query mailboxes and pull data into the application. Is there any, do you have any feedback on performance concerns about around that scenario?
I don't know about the rest of the folks, but I don't know about any EWS performance issues that you're referring to. What's that? Oh, throttling. Okay, yeah. Is that what you're talking about, throttling?
I don't know. It was at Tony Redmond's session today, and he said there was some possible concerns with third-party applications and
so. Sorry, this is really loud. That being from a software vendor that also produces software that uses EWS, just wondering how large is your environment?
We have about 16,000 mailboxes.
Okay, so first-hand knowledge here. If you're trying to do very expensive things, as querying all the mailboxes and all the folders in the mailboxes and enumerating all the items in the mailboxes, you'll get throttled, which means that it'll take a very long time to do certain stuff. Now, I can hardly imagine, other than for reporting purposes, you wanting to do stuff like that. So it really depends what you want to do and the way that you do it in EWS. In general, though, the throttling policies that are in place, they do a fair good job of allowing you to do the things that you want to do. But I believe this is a case where testing comes to showing you the results or whether or not it is acceptable for you or not. And mostly, or not mostly, but sometimes it can help to do a better job at coding or the way that the code is written, because you can do some stuff to optimize the performance there.
And sometimes you can have multiple service accounts too with an application, right? Like a lot of times you'll create a multiple service accounts so that one application isn't connected in everybody's mailbox, but you can have like multiple.
I guess the biggest concern we have is that one mailbox that gets about 20 gig worth of email a day, and they pull it's documents that get put in here, and they use EWS to extract the documents to pull it into our application.
So throttling works at least that's my understanding, in various ways. If you try and do everything within a very short period of time, you'll get throttled more easily. So if that application is pulling in the data, but it's taking its time to pull in the data, it'll actually work just beautifully. But again, I mean, it's really hard to say whether or not you'll run into throttling issues, if you will. It really depends. Hard to say.
I mean, one of the things that can come up with an application that leverages EWS is if you're using impersonation, where you've created an account in the cloud with impersonation to access the mailboxes and place something in there or retrieve, that goes against the accounting on the target mailbox. So if you code something in perhaps a less efficient manner, and you do multiple connections, that's going to go against the connection limit and the counting on that mailbox. So if you now fire up a Mac or a couple of iPads and other things that use EWS, guess what? You might find yourself a user experience gets impacted as a result. So there are things that you do need to consider.
All right.
Thank you.
So, So I heard a comment about hosting providers sometimes holding hostage and PST, forcing you to use PSTs and whatnot. So for a hosting provider who doesn't want to hold people hostage and wants to actually enable the customers on their existing hosting platform to move to Office 365, does the team have any guidance for the hosters in that particular case? Sorry, I mean, the big challenge is the multi-tenant. So we know there's a challenge going from single source to multi-target in Office 365 at the same time.
What do you mean by multi-target? Multiple tenants?
Yes.
So the way you'll have to deal with it is you have to treat the target source as well as multi-tenant. We've done some large migrations from various hosters as part of the internal projects. And the protocol, so I assume the source is on Exchange. So the protocol we typically use is merge, which is what stage migration is built on top of. So I would recommend, and we've done it for several 100,000 sizes orgs, multi-tenant environments. So you'll have to do a bunch of custom things. So you'll have to build solutions where you tie your provisioning to the tenant creation. So you scan the source, create a tenant, provision the mailbox, and then go ahead and use Stage for migrating the mailbox. And that's the kind of workflow that most of our multi-tenant partners have done to migrate big, large telecoms or multi-tenant hosters into Office 365. There is a syndication program, but that's for big syndications to move entire systems over to Office 365. If you're talking about something like that, then we can get you into that. But if it's like one of these hosted customers need to be migrated, then I would, the solution I can come up, so we don't have a custom solution for this. So the solution I came up is provision yourself and then migrate using merge. And that's what you have closest today. So.
Okay, I think I'm beating this topic to death. I probably speak to Tim earlier today. But it's, for eNow. In your experience, you've migrated a customer from 2007 to Office 365. So really, I agree with earlier what we talked about. It's really not about the migration. There's an issue, but really about the end user experience, about what's happening when the user's migrated. So there's endless Outlook prompts that we experience for very many different reasons. And so I just wanted to inquire your experience in the field that, in the companies that you've helped with that's still on the 7, what have you seen as far as the user experience goes?
That is a loaded question. Brutally honest here, things go south sometimes. I mean, regardless of what is available and what you do, in every migration I did, a move failed. In every migration I did, an Outlook client wouldn't reconnect. In every migration I did, there were some issues. Honestly, that's what you have. I've never seen an on-premises migration, for that matter, go as smoothly as that as well. I mean, there's every time something, something that you didn't account for, that you couldn't account for, that will happen. What the experience is the way that you handle that. And then I have to fully agree with these guys. It all comes down to communication. I mean, if you did your testing correctly and you know that you have certain issues, then communicate about them and let them know, hey, you know what, your mailbox is being moved at that point in time. This is what you may expect. If that occurs, then this is what you have to do. And then follow up, follow through. Just don't let them hang in there. So the end user experience can be really good, but you have to manage expectations as well. So it really, I mean, it's really hard to say. If everything works as you expected, then sure, the experience is great. But you have to plan for any case where something doesn't work the way you planned.
I think my question is a little too general. I think we talked about cross-premise calendar sharing, cross-premise delegation. We accounted for. We migrate all the pilot users that are not having any of that type of delegation permissions. We see Outlook prompts due to public folder, and the differences between that is, hey, you're not seeing that users migrated using Outlook 2010 not seeing the issue of accessing public folder, but rather in 2013 it requires users to recreate Outlook profile. I mean, there's just, and our question was, well, Microsoft said, absolutely, there's just not a way that when you migrate that user, you will need to recreate that Outlook profile. And, that's what we've been told. And, at least 3 cases, I opened 5 tickets, it all came out very differently. So I guess ultimately my company is asking and say, hey, you know what, ask everyone and see if we're the only company that's having this problem. We've even used a partner, per se. Yeah.
You're not the only customer that's having that problem.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, no, I think that's the nature. Of migrations. Why migrations is a big challenge for a business to look at and say, let's do. There's a lot of factors that play into it. The other thing is I also see a lot of times customers do their IT friendly or their early adopters, and they forget whole segments of their business, depending on the size of the business. And they forget to test the Apple users, the Mac users, and then they come to their Mac users and, oh, geez, we didn't even think of that. You have divisions. You have the people that, you have your crew that always, in your company, that's always hacking their machine and trying different apps and things like that on the machine. They're going to have problems. And that's the challenge, is because we don't very rarely do customers completely lock down their workstations so the users can't put anything on it or make any changes. And even there, you have hardware changes in those. Sometimes the hardware works differently. The network card doesn't wake up. Little things that will play, and all of a sudden you find these things out. And so there's that challenge. And again, technically, yes, the mailbox moves, but the end user doesn't see it that way, right? And so we get that challenge. I get that challenge. I've heard a lot about it. And so, these are encouragements we can kind of give you. We do have documentation on, best practices we've seen, but we're not saying that's the end-all solution. Partners also have a lot of experience. He has a lot of experience. Our consulting teams have a lot of experience. So you're not the only one that has that problem. We have it at Microsoft ourselves when we move sometimes. So there you go.
I'll add that you're the second person in one of these panel sessions that said they didn't want to hear my answer. Anyway. No. I don't know where the mic is.
Regarding SPF records during hybrid migration, is there any guidance that you can give when we go through setting up the domain? The DNS records for that is very generic. It points everything to Microsoft, but in a hybrid scenario, you got mail going essentially outbound from 2 locations. So is there any guidance that you can provide to end customers that would say, okay, if you have a hybrid scenario, this is the type of SPF record, these are the additional items that you need to add to the SPF record so you don't get bounce backs with other companies that are searching against blacklists?
I do believe that the TechNet documentation actually tells you to add an email server that will be sending email for that domain to the SPF record, and that's just what you'll have to do. Not every customer in a hybrid deployment actually sends email through to endpoints. If you have centralized mail flow, then every email will get out from your on-premises organization. I do agree that the generic information on the DNS records that you get through adding a domain wizard and all that isn't very helpful in such cases. But I do think the technical documentation has the additional information there.
I'll add that the domains wizard, I agree 100%, is not very good for people that are about to migrate or are in hybrid. But yes, you can have multiple SPF records, so you should have one for anywhere where the messages could be coming from.
That's assuming somebody already has an SPF record. But if they don't already have an SPF record
we don't, in the hybrid content, we definitely don't tell you how to configure your current on-premises mail flow.
So with regards to what Michael's saying, could there be maybe a link? Hey, if you've got on-premise servers, refer to this TechNet doc?
I'll look at the articles. I'll talk to a peer of mine, too, and see what kind of guidance we have on that.
Okay.
And I'll make sure it's updated, sure. But the one thing I wanted to point out is that we are working on improving that experience with the domain ad experience. We're trying to work on it to make sure that we guide customers through the domain, not just the domain ad. Right now, the domain ad experience is over here in left field, and the migration experience is in right field, right? They're completely disjointed, and they need to be brought together, and that's something we are working on. So we're trying to make it a more seamless experience so that you're told to put the SPF records in when you're supposed to. You're told to update auto-discover when you're supposed to. So we're actually working on improving that whole domain ad experience, too. So you should see that in the next couple months here.
Before I hand the mic over, did you say you can have multiple SPF records?
Yeah.
You can't.
No?
No.
See, I'm not a Mailflow guy. I thought you could.
You can add multiple entries, but if you have more than one SPF record.
I misspoke, but yeah, you can have multiple.
Right.
Yeah.
Just want to clear that.
You should be able to.
So I think I'm in the same boat as her, where I've kind of beat this question to death all day long. And
you not want me to answer?
There's probably some people that have heard me ask this question to Tony in the previous session, but so just to give you guys some background, we have probably somewhere between 25,000 PSTs that we're migrating over to online archiving, or we're going to start doing. One of the challenges that we have is that we have around 500 people who are in a hardcore Apple cult, and they use Apple Mail. Their archiving method is the inbox file on that client. Have you guys have any experience in the field with getting those inbox files over to online archiving?
I feel sorry for you.
There was a gentleman in the beginning who said I should get rid of all those Apple devices. I kind of agree with him. Truth be told, that is a tough spot to be in, really. Is there an easy way? No. I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, you can't just put up your magic wand and be like, poof, gone. I wish I could, but no. Third-party tools can sometimes help. To be honest, I don't know of any that actually do that, but that's what I would be looking at. Maybe manually ask them to, hey, drag all the files over there, and then that actually helps sometimes. I mean, I've had some situations where I would have to walk up to a customer and tell them, so what you have here is a unique situation that went wrong over a long period of time. And I will need your help. I will need your users' help to actually do something for me before I can actually help you do that, unless you want to spend so many more dollars on that. So sometimes getting your users involved and asking them, okay, do you really need the data? And if you do, then copy them over manually and ask them to do that is sometimes helpful. But, I mean, yeah, what he said, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure I understand the problem. Why couldn't you just do some sort of a PST disk shipping and send it to Azure and move?
So do you guys support importing of M-box extensions?
Oh, not M-box. PST is what I was talking about.
Back to the I'm sorry.
It's a very interactive front row. Very good front row today.
So in some cases, there are migration scenarios where you have inbox rules coming across with references to objects that don't exist in the tenant. So you will get the typical X500 error. Do you know any way to deal with those?
I can explain to you why it happens.
I know what happens too.
I don't have a good solution for that problem. We do some sort of a rule conversions. Sometimes those rule conversions do fail. So basically these rules point to item IDs. And if you use merge as a protocol, the item IDs change when you migrate to the cloud. The item ID on the source and the item ID on target are different. And so when these rules are pointing to the item ID, they are broken because the IDs are changed. Content should get converted, but for merge it doesn't. The rules don't get converted. So that's why it's broken. We wanted to solve that problem a while ago, but many people didn't complain, so we didn't think it was a big deal, so we left it at that. So if you think it's a big deal, then maybe we should revisit some of those problems. Okay.
Thank you.
In my organization, we've got a sister organization that has their own set of Exchange servers. We have one Exchange org,
We're already in the cloud. We have a hybrid configuration and DirSync running. They wanted to have their own tenant, but ran into roadblocks because of us having a hybrid configuration already in place. Is there a way, we've gone through quite a few conversations with Microsoft over this on how they could move into their own tenant. And it's gone back and forth, and we finally decided that we could only exist in one tenant because of the hybrid configuration. Is there any direction in the future for getting around this?
So I can add. So I don't know all the details. So I'm going to tell you that what you just said doesn't sound quite right. You can have multiple tenants coming from one on-premises organization. You can only go hybrid with one of them. Okay.
Right.
So you could do.
Our hybrid is in place permanently.
Yeah, great. So you have hybrid going to one tenant, right? And you want to split out some of your users to another tenant, right? So you could set up another DirSync, so AAD sync server,
right,
and do segmentation so that you only sync OU, X, Y, and Z, and sync them to another tenant. You just can't go hybrid in that second tenant.
Okay, so how do we move mailboxes?
You could use the staged approach like he was talking about. You could use third party.
You can do simple MRS, right?
Yeah, you can do. Yeah, so you have options. Yeah.
Right.
If you just turn on MRS proxy and have the certificate configured, you should be able to just use MRS. You don't need the whole full hybrid. There are some problems, but you can do that too.
If you want, if that didn't answer your question, see me after. I'll give you more details.
Okay.
Hello. I have a question around coexistence. So in hybrid, you can look up FreeBSD between Exchange on-premise and Exchange online. Imagine we have this scenario when you have 3 forests all connected to a single tenant, right? A, B, C, and every forest has an Exchange installed. So how do a user with a mailbox in a forest look up FreeBSD data for a user in a B forest?
It was, I heard the question right, if you had 380 forests configured in hybrid with a single tenant?
Yep.
And you want to look up, do a FreeBSD or availability lookup from forest A to forest B, or you need to configure, if you've federated the domains, you can add federation for each of the other forests, and you can then, it'll use federation to do a lookup to the other forests. You have to have gal sync in place and synchronize your identities for that to work, but that's how you would implement it. It's not transitive, so you can't just do a query from forest A that goes up to Office 365, Exchange Online, and back down to forest B or C.
So I can't use it as a hub, right? Like.
Yeah, it's not transitive. So basically, you would be in A forest, you'd be hybrid A and then tenant A, right? Then you have forest B and C. So forest B is looking up cloud A's, tenant. Then you would have to set up a separate org relationship. You'd have to make sure the domain name on that org relationship had the proper target address, contoso.mail.onmicrosoft.com, and that the gal synchronized that contact to forest B and C. Yeah, it's a complex process. It's we call it the hybrid mesh.
So is Office 365 involved in this process? So I have to set up this is directly between A and B?
That would be your own FIM or your own scripts that you would write to synchronize between forest A, B, and C. It's not part of DirSync.
Is this documented somewhere?
It's in my it's in my inbox documented.
All right, I'll shoot you an email. Thank you.
Shipping is inbox.
Documentation is actually in one of the slides that I didn't actually get to present it because I make way too many slides, but it was in one of my other presentations. So it'll be in a PowerPoint that's publicly externable, accessible.
I'm not sure if there's a good answer for this. With shared mailboxes and delegations or calendar delegations, I know how to use a PowerShell script to extract the delegations. Is there a good tool to map them? We have a lot of shared mailboxes that have security groups within them, and I'm trying to map out all my delegations prior to moving so I don't miss somebody. I haven't found a good way to correlate it other than manually mapping out all of this data.
That's a really good question, and that's something that, I mean, I'll be frank, our team is trying to look at how we could help customers with that, because that is a big challenge. You can find out who the delegates are, but then actually mapping it, so especially when you're trying to plan moves, you want to make sure that they all go together. So, no, there's no good answer right now,
okay,
but we're very aware of it.
Thank you.
You're making me run.
I don't know if it's a topic for maybe a bit off topic, but are there any plans for synchronized identity customers to not require the full hybrid configuration, just synchronize the identity up through DirSync or AD Connect, and then because once you do the sync, you're locked out of the cloud organization from making various changes to the objects. So you need to have that on-prem Exchange server. Are there any plans to change that?
So there's, again, in my inbox, there's, no, I'm just kidding. There's, we're working on a few things as far as planning, nowhere near implementing, right? But right now, when you have DirSync activated and you synchronize the user, I'm just setting the premise here. When you synchronize the user, we lock out a lot of the Exchange attributes from being modified. That requires you not to have hybrid, but to have an Exchange server on premises for recipient management. So I just wanted to clear that up. You don't need hybrid for recipient management, but you do need an Exchange server on premises for recipient management.
Right.
It's just clearing that up. But the idea is that you would like it so that you can actually modify the permissions directly in the cloud if you have all your mailboxes in the cloud, right? I only have DirSync so that I could do password sync or identity federation, but I want to be able to manage attributes in the cloud.
Yeah, exactly the use case.
So let me ask you, the audience, a question then. If we were, and this is not an announcement, it's just we're kicking around ideas, right? So if we were to say, give you the ability to change the source of authority, to be able to say, okay, I don't want to manage, I want to create users on-prem because I have provisioning systems, or I still have Active Directory and I want to sync passwords, but I want to do all of my Exchange management in the cloud. And you've moved all your mailboxes, and we gave you an option to say, I'm changing my source of authority. And now everything Exchange attributes get managed in the cloud from EAC in the cloud. Would that be something that you would want? Okay. Well, I'm not saying we're doing it, so don't clap. This is. I was actually asked to get feedback on that very thing this week because it's something we're kicking around. So, are we looking at it? Very actively looking at it. I'm not announcing that we're doing anything, but very actively looking at it.
Yeah. So just, on the feedback side, we know specifically from our customer base that in the mid-market segment, it's huge because at some point you have this infrastructure you need to keep on-prem, and you need firewalls open, and potentially need to keep it redundant if provisioning is something I need to keep redundant. So it's a big challenge once I'm entirely cloud. So just on the feedback side.
Perfect.
So the process that you're working on, is that going to be automatic? Meaning that you will detect that the mailbox has been moved, so you will enable the...
Heck no.
No?
No. We want you to decide if that happens. The problem is, even when you move mailboxes, a lot of times you don't move all the mailboxes, right? There'll be some disabled mailboxes that you'll leave behind, and maybe you never intend on even moving them, right? There'll be system mailboxes. It's just, nah, we're not going to make a decision for you. I don't think so.
But you could detect that the mailbox, so do it per mailbox.
Oh, no, you're getting crazy now.
Well,
no, so yeah, you could do per mailbox, and that would be, okay, I'm an admin. I need to work on Jane's mailbox. Where do I go? Nah. So you could do multi-master, right, where you do full multi-master. Look at the collisions there, right? So there's a lot of challenges with things like that. That's why maybe baby steps to get there. So tone it back a little bit.
Another quick question before. SharePoint is supported in Azure. Is Exchange going to ever be supported in Azure?
Yeah, it was announced the other day.
Oh, it was? Okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I wouldn't, I would say the first thing I'd put out there is my hybrid server for recipient management. Yeah, that's why you can get rid of your on-prem servers. Yeah. We like it.
Just to piggyback on that, the whole DirSync and Exchange attributes, in particular for clients that are coming off non-Exchange platforms, it would be huge. So if people are in a Notes environment and they are going to use DirSync, it's kind of a shame to tell them now to deploy an on-prem server.
Totally get it. Yeah.
So I know you guys aren't part of the Outlook team, but do you happen to have any insight on whether or not Outlook 2016 would support the import of an inbox file so I could re-export it as a PST?
We have a comedian in the front.
Next question.
We're not moving on until we get an answer. You're going to have to answer that one, Tim.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, that one?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no.
Since there were no other questions, I just wanted to ask you guys, especially the non-Microsoft guys, how you see companies. There was a lot of tension about on-premise Exchange. I feel there is a lot of love still for on-premise. We clearly feel Microsoft pushing to the cloud. But how do you guys see it? How fast do you think it will go? Will on-premise disappear over time? Will it still exist? Is it something? How do you guys see it?
If I would know what happens in the future, I would not be sitting here. That's for sure. I do have a lot of on-premises customers. I have customers that are moving. I have customers that are moving back. And I have customers that are not going anywhere.
Why are they moving back?
They didn't like it for some particular reason.
What reason? Yeah.
It just wasn't working out for them.
Without
going, we can have a conversation about that. But the truth is, that'll happen. I mean, I had customers 5 years ago that said, "Cloud, no way." They're now happily living in Office 365. Things change. Times change. Back in the days, and listen to me talking, we had mainframes, then we had personal computers, now we have that cloud thingy. Who knows what's going to be next in 10 years? It depends. Will it go away? I don't think so. I don't think that we will ever get rid of all on-premises things. Will there be a point where Microsoft decides, hey, now we have enough customers in Office 365 to get rid of Exchange on-premises? I don't know. You'll have to ask them.
But what is the general, how should I put it, feeling at customers towards cloud? It's true that it has changed over the last few years, but I'm just curious. You get in contact with a lot of people.
So every company that I talk to is looking at it, trying it, tipping their toe in the water, seeing how it can help them, benefit them. Because it's just how the way IT evolves, and it makes sense for a lot of customers, but it's a very personal thing. Those that are already jump ship, that means that for them it was the right choice. Those that are still trying out, they're still figuring out how can this cloud thing, whatever it is. I mean, we're not only talking about Office 365 here, but it really depends. Most of the customers that I talk to, they're really interested. They see the benefits, and again, I mean, it is very personal. So, but yeah, there is definitely more interest into moving. So I do believe that over the course of the next few years, more customers will move. Not last week. 2 weeks ago, I was driving the car and I saw a newsflash about a German company called Henkel moved to Office 365. My first thought was, wow, look at that, a German company. I know that in Germany, it's really hard to sometimes get things done, and that's a really large reference. If that can happen, then anything can happen. So,
if the German moves, then it can happen. Is what you're saying?
I didn't put it that way, but
that's historically correct, also. Anyway, thank you.
I'll mention one thing. I know you talked about people offboarding. I know one that was actually brought up by somebody who came up to me at this conference was that their company had moved to Office 365 and was acquired. And they were acquired by a company who doesn't believe in Office 365 like the previous company did. So they're being offboarded. There's a lot of reasons to offboard, but that was just one that I heard from a non-Microsoft kind of answer, that they were offboarding for that reason.
There's a question back there.
Yeah, in a session earlier today with Tim, you said, yeah, we have to keep at least one Exchange server on-prem. Has that to be a fully operational Exchange server? I mean, all the roles, or?
We prefer it to not be blue screening. No, it's so if you're by fully operational, if you mean does it need all the roles installed? Okay.
Yes.
So for like 2013, you absolutely need the CAS and mailbox role installed. Because that's what's required to run the administration tools, right? For 2010, for 2010 it needs the CAS and mailbox role as well. It doesn't need the hub role in 2010 to run the administration tools. So it's the requirements of yes, you do need the roles. You need a functional server. You don't necessarily need a DAG or anything like that. It can be virtual. It can be underpowered. I explained it to somebody earlier. If you can run it on your phone, that's fine. It's just for recipient management. You're not doing, at that point, you've already moved all your mailboxes. It's just to say, I want to modify user X or I want to create user Y. That's all.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Say, what's the ability, or is there an ability to establish a hybrid organization if you're starting in Office 365 without any on-prem Exchange to start with?
So you should talk to Paul Cunningham. The reverse hybrid, there are some challenges with that. Is it doable? Yes. Will you run into problems? Yes. But essentially, hey, I'm just being honest here. But no, it's definitely doable. As I said, there are some challenges. Without going into detail, we can talk about that later. But you'll have to, go back from what the HEW normally does, just do a track back. But essentially, you're doing the same things, right? The hard piece is not really the Exchange piece; it's the identity piece again. If you don't have anything on premises, then you have to get all those users from Office 365 in the on-premises organization. Many ways to do that, many tools to do that, scripts to do that, but that's one of the things that you'll have to run into. And then once you got your bases covered, it's just setting up a hybrid. And
so high level, the process, I'll wrap it up in 2 minutes and it'll sound super easy, right? So first thing you do is create all the users on premises to match what you have in the cloud, right? Assuming you don't have them already. You then make sure that you have Exchange installed, the version you want, with mail-enabled users that have SMTP addresses that match your cloud users. You then install DirSync. A DirSync soft match occurs. You can now manage all of your users. You should then take your MS Exchange mailbox GUID and make sure they're stamped on the on-premises object in case you ever want to offboard it, and run HCW, and you're done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks.
Perception, reality.
I'll echo that. We actually just did that over this week for someone, and yeah, it works.
5 steps?
It's 5 steps.
1 week, not 8?
1 week of fixing it. But that's anyways, not actually my question. But are there any plans to publish guidance around customers with large VDI installations who are moving to Office 365? And by that, I don't mean supporting online mode in the VDI installation, which is really the big challenge, but publishing guidance for the customer of, hey, how do I size? What changes do I need to my VDI infrastructure in order to make the move successful?
So is there anybody that knows about the documentation you're asking about? Is that it?
Does it as an example, I'm pretty sure there was a big 365 dedicated customer who had 20% VDI users who, as far as I know, was planning to go to 365 dedicated and has since considered rescinding on that track because they can't they don't have a good story for their VDI users right now. So that's kind of, how do we help those guys?
I'm trying to think of a good story right now. I don't know the answer. I don't know if anybody on the panel.
Well, I don't have a better story, I think. But VDI or just other virtualized desktop environments, it is hard to deal with. It's just a reality. I mean, I've had customers that went down the Office 365, not nearly as far as as big environments as you talked about, but they actually did the non-online mode, so the cache mode on the Outlook client, and they figured out the way of how to persist the data, which obviously gave them a hit on the storage side, because now they have to make sure that the data is persisted instead of just having a true VDI environment where you can have the desktop just disappear and then pop up again, because basically that's the problem here. The reason why you have the online cache mode in the Outlook client is because you can't persist, or they don't want to persist, the Outlook cache. Now, this being said, I do have one customer that is trialing having it in online mode with Outlook 2013, because MAPI HTTP actually does a much better job. But I would have to go back and talk to him and see if that actually worked out.
So for your customer who did the switch to cache mode, did they get any, performance? Did they get any metrics back from doing that to say, oh, hey, I need to add X IOPS in SSDs to handle this, or whatever the case may be?
I imagine they did, but again, I don't have any of the specifics.
Okay. You can get my email address after. I'll connect you with the right people, because I just don't want to give you a bad answer. So he gave you a great answer, but I don't want to give you a bad answer.
It's me? Okay, very good. So I have a question that I seem to be getting conflicting answers to. I was a little bit late here. I hope you haven't covered it yet, which deals with cutover migrations. Okay, you can easily find Microsoft people all over the internet saying that whenever you do a cutover migration, you shouldn't have already present IDs or mailboxes in the cloud. They should be migrated into a hopefully brand new tenant, right? And that's what I've been telling everyone until one day I ran into a customer that did exactly this. They had already identities, they had already mailboxes, because they had been trying out Link Online beforehand, right? And that kind of migration worked just fine, to my astonishment. So now, what is the truth here, and what is the best practice, and what's your take on it?
Yeah, so when we describe the typical flow, which is go into a clean tenant and migrate your mailboxes. But cutover will work even for existing mailboxes. What it'll do is it'll pick the mailboxes where the identities match, and it'll merge into that mailbox the content that you get. And so we do a bunch of dedupes as well, so you won't get duplicate content either. But things like if a mail was deleted in the cloud, but was not deleted on-premise after the migration, and if you re-migrate those mailboxes, then you will get those deleted email back again, because your sync state is removed, lost when you re-migrate after deleting all the merge. In your case, there's no problem because it's an empty mailbox. You just migrate into it, and it'll just work. It'll work.
But you can find a lot of people having an error message saying that there's an existing live ID something, and you're being told the error message to run it again with a switch that doesn't exist.
Doesn't what?
Yes, you can find a lot of people having actually run into problems with existing IDs, right? They get an error message back saying that this ID already exists, please run this command again, and it suggests to run a command with a switch that doesn't exist with a PowerShell command and so on. It seems to be a mess.
Huh.
So it either works or it doesn't. And I seem to getting both answers.
It should work. And if it doesn't work, it's a bug, we should fix it.
Okay.
And the way it should work is if the mailbox exists, it should just reuse that mailbox and migrate into that. I think the step you're talking about is a provisioning step, where when it attempts to provision, it might get that error, but that error should be subsumed and the system should handle it. If it's not something that, just shoot me a mail and we'll fix the bug.
Okay, so it should work, and if it doesn't, it should be a support ticket, and it should probably be
fixed. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
How much time do we have, Tim? 5.5 minutes. I need to do the feature exercise. Should I do the feature exercise now? Or should just wait for it?
He's already got the mic.
Okay, go for it. Go for it.
But actually, I think mine is similar to the last question. We currently have some contacts in Exchange Online Protection. So we have a tenant established. And we've got some contacts there that we're using for the edge blocking feature. So just so that if the contact doesn't exist, the mail gets dropped right at the edge. When we go to move mail up, is there going to be any way to merge contacts into the mail user or into the mailbox, or are we going to have to do all that beforehand, convert everything to a mail user and move the contacts around so that we have the one-to-one match, or is there any sort of way to merge?
So you currently have on-premises Exchange, and you're using Exchange Online Protection, and you have directory-based edge blocking configured.
Yes.
But how did you get the contacts in there?
We're populating them manually through scripts that we run every 4 hours.
Well, when you set up DirSync, I'm not...
That's the question, is when we actually go to use DirSync, there's going to be some conflicts.
Do those contacts match what you have in your on-prem Exchange
Yes,
environment?
yes. So we have a-
Technically, DirSync should do a soft match when you sync up.
So, okay.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that that's going to happen with directory-based edge blocking, and I'm not sure that that's going to happen in Exchange Online Protection. So I could make something up now, but rather than doing that, I'm going to connect you with Scott Landry. So make sure you get my email address before you leave, and I'll forward. You'll email me, and I'll forward that to Scott Landry. He'll answer you. Unless Brian Reed, do you know? So he believes it will, which means he's not sure, which means you'll email me, and then we'll get you a proper answer. No offense, Brian. Thank you. Do you want to?
I'm doing
Yeah, so let's spend a few minutes trying to do some feature priority exercise. So for those of you who are familiar with the tools, there are a bunch of problems we know we have and we want to improve. I just want to run these problems by you guys and see what you think and where we should invest in. And I think the first one I heard from you was some sort of a support for stage migration against 2010 and above, which I did tell you how to go about doing it, but I think a natural out-of-box support for 2010 and staged. Another problem with our tools is the lifecycle management for various batch and the individual users in the batch is a bit limiting. In the sense, say you create a batch and you run it, and the batch fails, a bunch of these users' migration fails. So one of the reasons it may fail is, hey, the bad item limit was met and was specified at the batch, but you can't go change it on the individual users. I know you can all go use move requests, but I'm encouraging the field and everyone else to go use the batch constructs to do all the migrations, the migration batch constructs. So in that, one of the things is you can't go set the bad item limit on a per individual basis. You can't resume a user in the batch. You can't, and so that's one of those things that I would like to improve, which is improve batch user management. So be able to do things like increase limit and retry, for example. Another thing that I keep hearing from customers is, you know this certificate thing that you're asking me to configure when I'm migrating? It's painful. Can you get rid of certificates completely and not have any requirements that we have certificates? So that's one of those things where, for example, merge. When you do merge, cutover, or stage, you're going to have to install a third-party trusted cert. Can we do it with self-signed cert? So that's one of those things that I keep getting. And the fourth one is, if you look at the dashboard today, all the reports today are like per individual basis. So when we're going to do a talk tomorrow, and Luke here is a developer in our team, right here in the audience, he's going to demonstrate how you can use the commandlets to investigate errors in aggregate. So pivot it on a certain class of errors and look at who are the users that have failed in that error and then go address those issues. I'm sure you guys do it all the time, but we don't have these constructs in the EAC where you can just look at a single shot of what are the kinds of errors my users are getting and then go drill down into those. So enhanced reporting is what I call that. Is there something else you guys think we should add? Please let me know right now. And then I would like to do a priority exercise, maybe a show of hands for each one of these numbers. And there's one question. Yeah. Tenant to tenant. That's a hard one. Sorry, what? I'm going to check that. Go ahead. I see. Selective cutover. All right. One more. All right. So, okay. So let's do the exercise. I don't see any hands up for more features. All right. 2010 and state support. How many wants? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 people. 6 people. Okay. Improve batch management experience. All right. All right. How about lots? Okay. Cert management. Get rid of it. Nobody cares? You like certs to be there, third-party certs to be there? Wow, that's cool. Okay. Don't care. Enhanced reporting. So how do you, if you want to see, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 20? Less than number 2, though.
Less than 1.
Less than 1. Okay, tenant to tenant migration. Oh, come on. So in this, there are 2 ways to go about solving this problem. One is doing the right thing, which is being able to merge the tenants by merging the recipients and not having data to be moved. That would be an ideal. But of course, we have cross-forest merge that may not enable us to do those things. So those are some things we can do. Or some sort of short hacks where you can move mailboxes from one tenant to another by doing your own provisioning, and then we can provide some sort of a merge between tenants. So both are feasible, but I see that this is number 1. Fine. Selective cutover.
That looks like one person.
Lots. Oh, okay, got it. And selective cutover. 1, 2, 3. It's in the chop list, buddy. 4. Okay. Thank you very much. This is a very useful exercise.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.